and distinguished Speaker Dr. C. Rangarajan, distinguished delegates, members, friends. It is indeed an honor and privilege for me to be here to participate in the Maharashtra Economic Summit and to present the theme of the summit to the delegates. I just landed today in Mumbai from a 3-day visit in UK with the CIA SME mission to UK. And one of the things which struck me most was the fact that wherever we went, both the political leadership, the local governments, the national governments, as well as the businessmen, and particularly the SMEs, the universities, they were all looking to India to make a big breakthrough in the way India is going to run its economy, in the way it is going to run its businesses, and they are all the time talking about India becoming the third largest economic power in the world in another 20 years. And when the international community is expecting us to take our place in the high table of international commerce and business, it is a matter of opportunity and challenge for us to be able to rise up to these expectations and to make the expectations of the international community, the planning of the government of India, and the aspirations of the Indian people a reality. And if that is to really happen, if India is to go on a 9% average GDP growth track over the next 2 to 3 decades, it is not going to come just from hopes and aspirations, but it is going to come from a lot of hard work, a lot of continuous improvements in our own setups. I think this is an area where more than the big players who have been leading the charge so far, it is the small and medium enterprises who would have to take a significant burden of this growth track, growth prospect for the Indian economy going forward in the future. So in this context, it is a very, very apt occasion, a very apt timing for holding this summit, and for Mr. Salunke to have the foresight and the vision to invite such eminent speakers as Mr. Yashwant Sinha, a former finance minister and the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Finance, Dr. C. Rangarajan, a renowned economist and the chairman of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, to be here to share their thoughts with us on the direction, the move forward, and how we are going to participate in this and what are the challenges. Post-independence, there was a tremendous challenge for the Indian economic planners because it was a litmus test for them to prove that centralized planning would work. And the industry, agriculture, transport, healthcare, everything was in a very undeveloped state. The economic planners decided on a mixed economic model and ran it successfully for the first 3 5-year plans. But subsequently, as the world economics, commerce, and politics changed, there was a gap between the model that was being run and the requirement of the country and its economy. And this led to a crisis in the 90s and very sweeping changes across the economy. Some of the architects of the continued change and reformation are here in the form of Dr. Rangarajan, Mr. Sinha, and various others. And the country embarked on a 3-process reform, LPG, that is liberalization, privatization, and globalization. We are in the middle of this journey, and it would be very interesting for us to know from these eminent speakers how fast and how far have each of these processes moved. If we are on par, which of these processes, the liberalization, privatization, or globalization, which has achieved a par in terms of the expectations, which has exceeded the expectations, which is ahead of the par, which is falling behind, and if so, why? We would really be very interested to learn and to understand from the eminent speakers. If we look at sectorally the Indian economy, the agriculture sector, which supports 60% of the population in terms of vocations, contributes only about 17% of the GDP currently. More interesting and important is that the growth rates are very small. 1.1% last year when it was a bad monsoon year. Current year more than 3.4% in the first half of the year, hoping to go nearer the 4.5 to 5% level in the current year. Whatever it is, the average growth rates in agriculture have been quite slow compared to other sectors of the economy, and the capital investment in agriculture again is abysmal compared to the industry or services sectors. We had something like 3.2 billion in the current year, which is very, very minuscule compared to 30 billion investment in the overall economy. So why are these growth rates and the investments in the agriculture sector so low compared to the other sectors? And what can we do to correct this distortion? It would be really interesting to know from the eminent speakers who would be enlightening us. If we look at industry, the most critical challenge today is how to keep a sustainable high growth rate for the industry going forward over a long period. While certain sectors of the industry, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, are showing a good pace of growth, there are many sectors which are not really keeping on pace with them. What needs to be done to ensure that the industry grows rapidly, say for the next 20 to 30 years? Not only to boost the overall growth of the economy, but to generate huge amount of employment, both for the existing workforce and for the huge workforces which are going to be added in the coming decades. If you look at the services sector, it has been the highest contributor to the GDP. The service sector contributes about 53% of the GDP, as against industrial sector of only about 27 to 29%. How do we combat the emergence of certain protectionist tendencies which are impeding the growth of the services sector? Is our educational system adequate to be able to provide the right kind of human resources to keep up this frenetic growth rate that the services sector has embarked upon? Are we over-focusing on the services sector and potentially falling into the danger of hollowing out of the manufacturing economy? These are some of the worries and anxieties that we all have in our minds, and we would like to be enlightened by the eminent speakers. There are other issues. We have a huge gross capital formation percentage now. From 21% we have moved to 35% currently. We have a very high savings rate, which again has moved from the low 20s to 34% level. What is the sustainability of these? Because these have to be sustainable, these have to be high for the economy to really achieve the 9 and 10% growth rates that we are all hoping it would do in the next few decades. How will these be sustained? This is again an area of concern that we would like to have some thoughts from the eminent speakers. Can the new Indian economic growth of 9% that everyone is talking about, not only within India, even across the world, can this trend be based on a private sector and PPP partnered model? Can it be based on a partnered model of small businesses along with the big businesses? Can it be based on a model where both the domestic market as well as the international markets contribute equally? And can it be a model where there is a good, healthy balance between agricultural growth, industrial growth, and the services sector growth? If so, what are the steps and measures that we have to take? If we drill down to Maharashtra, it again presents an interesting comparison. Just as today, whenever we talk about Indian economy, nobody can resist from talking simultaneously about China and comparing Indian economy with the Chinese economy and its prospects. Similarly, I think within India, when we talk about the leading economic state of Maharashtra, we cannot resist the temptation of comparing with Gujarat, another fast-growing neighbor who has set certain examples in the industrial growth model for the rest of the country. If you look at the statistics, Maharashtra's statistics do not look bad. They are quite good, whether it is in terms of state GDP contribution in absolute terms, in terms of rate of growth, in terms of urbanization, industrialization, etc. But if you look at the cumulative or compounded average growth rate of Gujarat over the last 10 years, it is definitely higher than Maharashtra by at least 3% on an annual basis. So that is a state which is accelerating. What is it that they are doing right, which probably we have to adopt some best practices even from this neighboring state? We need to really introspect on this also. If you look at the per capita income, Maharashtra's per capita income continues to be the leader. It continues to be good. But if you look at the sectoral breakup, we find that what concern we have for India about the industrial sector potentially playing a smaller role compared to the services sector, I think that concern is revealed when we look at Maharashtra's graph, where the secondary sector is much smaller than the tertiary sector and definitely much smaller than Gujarat's secondary sector also. Is there a lesson to learn? Is there a warning signal to pick up in this? We need to deliberate on this in this summit. If India has to achieve this frenetic growth rate, 9 to 10%, we have to have a very smart ecosystem which would take care of economy, jobs, skills, a productive environment, social innovation, homes for all, bridging the rural-urban divide, transport infrastructure, culture, tourism, good governance, smart food supply chains, safety, security. If we have to achieve this, what do we have to do right? What should be the smart ecosystem for the country and for Maharashtra? If the state of Maharashtra is slipping in the pace as a leader of economic growth in India, what should be done to turbocharge this growth? And what role can SMEs play in this and how? These are some of the thoughts and concerns and questions that have been bothering a lot of us. And we hope that with the address of the very eminent, very knowledgeable speakers who are having great vision and great farsight in looking at the Indian economy and its future, we would be able to get answers to several of these points, which would all together become the theme for today's summit. Thank you. Thank you very much.